Hi, I'm Captain Save-A-Home. Welcome to Greenfield, California.
And I'm J.A.N.I.S. It stands for Just a Naturally Intelligent System. Welcome to volume number 1. There are a few things to consider when choosing a location for your shed. Try to avoid overhanging trees too close to the location. However, smaller trees, bushes, and fences, no less than 3 feet from the structure can help protect from wind. A few options for a base can be considered. As long as the finished surface is sound, stable, and level. 1. A frame made of treated lumber or pallets, with plywood decking. 2. Bricks, concrete blocks, or paving stones. Or 3. A concrete slab. We will be installing a 10-foot by 20-foot structure on this concrete location. Always start with a clean project area, and make sure to keep it clean as the project progresses. A clean workspace will minimize several safety issues, and give you more space to move about in the area. You will also want to mark out where the perimeter of the structure will be. This will give you a guide to square corners and a reference point for your assembled components.
The next step is to pull everything out of the carton and make sure we have everything.
It would be suggested to put down cardboard or drop cloths to minimize scratching the parts during this process.
You want to wear your safety gloves. Some of this metal can be pretty sharp, and the gloves will definitely help with that. As well as always wear your safety glasses when you're working with this kind of stuff.
Due to the sharp metal edges, additional safety suggestions would also be wearing long pants and long sleeves. It would quite literally not hurt you to wear protective footwear as well.
While pulling everything out, there's no noticeable damage, so that's good. Now we just got to make sure that everything is here now.
Performing an inventory will allow you to know if any parts are missing. Check off every item in the parts list as you find them. It would be unfortunate to find out that you have to halt progress due to the lack of components during assembly. If you've noticed any components missing, please contact the manufacturer or retailer for a solution.
Now that we've taken inventory and have determined that all the pieces are there, it's time to start putting together the base rails. Now typically if you're going to use a drill, I would say you need to put the drill setting at the lowest setting you possibly can. So my preference is a variable pressurized switch. So you actually push and give the tool pressure, and it actually engages the drill. That way I've gotten used to the variable pressure switch, so I can give it just a little bit if I want to, or I can give it a lot. And that's just what I'm comfortable with. But I would say go with what you're comfortable with. Chances are it's going to just be a typical cordless drill. If you're more comfortable with just a Phillips screwdriver, that's fine too. Make sure you wear your gloves on this one, because they'll definitely, these parts might want to cut you up quite a bit.
While assembling each step, the screw holes may not line up entirely. If that is the case, leave the screws slightly loose until the step is complete. Then, fully tighten each screw and set the assembled component aside for the next step.
Alright, I've got these 3 components on that side taken care of. This is the front edge corner. That connects to the side bottom rail. That, of course, that creates our corner. and then allows the opening for the big swinging doors that are going to go in. This plate is an anchor plate. It's going to attach to that front piece. And this is a corner brace. This is actually going to connect to both pieces to give us a stable corner.
Again, while adding the brackets, we want to keep the screws slightly loose to make our adjustments while squaring the corners.
Okay, so the bottom footing rail is in place and completely put together now. Had one issue as far as where this anchor plate sits. The anchor hole here sits a little too close to the edge, so what we want to do is we want to bring it into center so that way it gives it a little bit more meat to hold on to when it goes into the concrete. Aside from that, we're only about a couple of inches off from what we originally anticipated, which is fine because we still have just about 36 inches of walking space here. We have more than that over here, and we still have 36 inches going between where the shed's going to go and the AC unit. It also gives us a few more inches extra towards the front side as a staging area. So all in all, we made out pretty good.
To square the corners, the first thing we need to do is make sure our back rail is completely straight and at equal distance from the edge of the concrete. We will then mark the anchor bolt holes for the rear corners and the center of the back rail. With the back rail straight, we can use it as a reference point to help square out each corner. We can start by using a framing square at the two back corners. We would then need to run a straight edge along each side, from back to front. To establish square for the entire frame, it is suggested to start at one of the back corners and measure to the opposite front corner, then do the same for the other two diagonal corners. If the measurements are the same, the frame is square. With the frame square and the anchor bolt holes marked, we are ready to drill the holes for the anchors. Use a concrete bit to the correct size of the anchors that you are using. Use water to keep the drill bit cool, and drill the center of the mark. Pay close attention to the depth of the bolt hole. The sheathing on the anchor bolt can be used as a reference to the depth that you will need. When the bolt hole is ready, take the nut and thread it onto the top edge of the anchor bolt. This will allow you to tap the anchor bolt into place without damaging the bolt threads. Tap the anchor bolt lightly until the sheathing is just below the level of the concrete, making sure not to damage the threads or the body of the bolt. With the anchor bolts in place, it's time to clean up all of the debris from drilling and mark the outline of the frame to apply wet patch. This will create a seal between the shed and the concrete, making it difficult for water to get in. You can make the marks with a chalk line, but we are doing it with a carpenter's pencil instead.
Now, when you're working with wet patch or roof patch of any sort, it gets really messy, so make sure you have something to keep it clean nearby. And when you set it down, even if you disengage the caulking gun, it still may want to spill out a little bit. So always keep the tube on a surface that you're going to throw away later. It likes to spread. So like when you're putting it down to seal the bottom rail there, you definitely want to have something for the caulking gun to sit on, because the wet patch will want to continue to come out of the tube even if you disengage the caulking gun. You also want to, from then on out, keep a rag with you so you can wipe your tools off if you're ended up using your tools within close proximity. Usually with this particular product, the wet patch usually comes off of the tools if you wipe them off immediately. There is some residual after the fact, but once you get done using everything, before you put them away, the best way to clean up tools is by using a rag and WD-40. Also, another thing too is that if you're not careful enough, it will get on your clothes. Always have at least one set of clothes designated for DIY projects. That way you're not constantly burning up clothes.
Once the wet patch is in place, we can put the bottom framing back where it belongs and start placing the washers, lock washers, and nuts onto the anchor bolts and tighten them all down.
When you're tightening the anchor bolts, you can use a few methods. One of them is a crescent wrench. Another is a socket. The third is just a standard wrench. And the fourth would be a nut driver. This basically takes the place of any wrenches, any sockets, and of course you have if I can get it out of there, several socket sizes that are included. It doesn't necessarily take the place of a socket and ratchet set, but it's definitely a lot more compact. We've got the anchor bolts put back in. We've got everything screwed down and tightened up, and now that the bottom rail is in completely, it's time to start assembling the corners. When installing a shed like this, they always recommend 2 people. So far, I've been able to take care of it all by myself without an issue. This is where the second person comes in. Basically, what they're going to be doing is standing there holding everything. And that can be substituted with anything that you've got sitting around. As long as it's sturdy enough to hold any weight whatsoever, it should be fine. Basically, the corners here would have to be held up so they don't fall down. If you've got a breeze or anything like that, before they're secured, they are going to be susceptible to falling down. So the trick is just to find something that you can prop up against it once that corner is in, and even while the corner is being put in. It's also worth mentioning that if you're doing this by yourself, you're going to want to get the screws and washers, a few of them set up to be able to secure the pieces that you're working on before you get started. In this case, the plastic washers look like this, and the screws look like this. So you basically want to set up the screws with the washers on already. That way you can just go ahead, have a few of them on hand, and then just go ahead and put them in together like that.
Installing the corners can be performed by one person. Guide the screws into the holes in the panels, and apply pressure to the screws with the bar. This will help secure the bar and hold it in place, making it easier for the other screws to go in.
I left that one open. That's because the next panel is going to go ahead and slip inside of that, and we'll be screwing both panels into that piece there. This is one of the moments where you would more than likely need a second person. That's to line up the the corner, there's going to be a screw hole there. And so you're going to end up putting a screw in that corner to line up the corner. You would end up having the one person on the outside pushing the corner together as you install the screw. However, if it's just yourself, I'm going to show you how to do this just one person. So first off, now that we have the two pieces in place, we're going to try to line up that corner, which usually doesn't work. So your best bet is to get the screw into the top piece just enough to where it catches the top and it holds. Then what you do is you lift the top rail. You do your best to line the tip of the screw with the hole in the bottom of the bottom piece of the rail. Sometimes it's easier said than done, but it's going to be easier than just trying to fight getting both pieces in all at once while you're trying to put the screw in. It may take a couple of times, but if you just don't have that extra person, then what are you going to do, you know? Almost lined up, and there we go. Now that the tip of the screw is in that bottom piece of the rail to make the corner, now you can go ahead and tighten that screw all the way through. And there you go. The first corner is in. And like I said earlier, I just wanted to get something to kind of hold the corner up and hold the panels up for the time being until there's a little bit more stability connected to the corners.
Once the second corner is in, the bar being installed will be able to connect to the bar from the first corner, giving them both stability. However, we will still want to support the bag until the two front corners are assembled.
I'm lining up the screws in the holes in the panel, and it's making things a whole lot easier when I use the bar as leverage to be able to get the screw into the bar. Once the screw's into the bar, things end up turning out to be a whole lot better off in that aspect, and it's much easier to get the rest of the screws in without a whole lot of effort.
Keeping the necessary tools and supplies nearby, and using what you have available to secure parts while they are being installed, it is possible for one person to do a project that suggests 2 or more people. However, having someone putting screws and washers together, passing tools and supplies, holding parts in place, and even providing social interaction, can improve conditions considerably and make your projects more enjoyable.
With that said, I think we've had all the fun we can have for right now. So we'll see you next time.
If what you saw was helpful, intriguing, or entertaining, please like us, share with your friends, and subscribe to be notified of newly released issues. And leave a comment below if you have any questions about the projects you see here. We would enjoy hearing from you. Captain, I am sure you are aware that this is the first piece of shed we have completed together.
And we're only just getting started.